Good morning. My name's Luke Achterstraat. I like to think I've hopefully met most of you. I'm the CEO of Commtract. I've been with the business for almost 4 years now. As you know, we're an online platform for communications professionals and a marketplace, but probably more importantly, what we're really trying to do is build a community and really rally around the communications community. And we've done a lot of events in the past, and obviously we've had to move those online now. In light of working remotely and in light of the COVID-19 situation. So we thought, what better topic, or there isn't a better topic than to talk about internal communications at the moment in light of this crisis. And I'm absolutely thrilled to have Alistair Marshall with us as our special guest today on Commtract's second ever webinar. Now, a little bit about Alistair: 15 to 20 years experience in the communications world. And you might actually argue when it comes to internal comms, he's had the trifecta of roles. He's been the head of internal comms at IAG, the head of internal comms at Medibank, and now obviously the head of internal comms at Coles. So really deep experience in financial services, health and retail. And at the moment, responsible for leading the internal communications effort to, well over 120,000 people in the Coles family, in the Coles workforce, dealing with some challenges never seen before, such as running out of toilet paper and making sure customers stick 1.5 meters apart from each other. So the sort of thing you can't really write a playbook for. So I'm really excited to dig in today and hear what Alistair has to say about COVID-19 and how he's led that charge internally at Coles. So with no further ado, I think today we'll ask Alistair a few questions. We'll keep it nice and informal, get a bit of a discussion going. And for all you listeners, loyal listeners out there, if you see your Q&A button down the bottom, there will be a chance to actually write in and ask Alistair a question towards the end of the webinar. So he and I will have a yarn for about 15 minutes, I'd say, and then we'd love to source some questions from you guys, from the comms professionals watching today, and get Alistair's feedback on those. So Alistair, mate, firstly, thank you. Welcome. I see you dressed head to toe there in your Coles merchandise.
I am Luke. G'day. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone out there. It's good to be here. Yeah, I'm actually in Coles's store support centre in Hawthorn today. So I'm one of the few people in here. This building normally has about 4,000 people in it, and I think there's probably less than a couple of hundred today. So feeling a little bit lonely, but nevertheless, I'm representing proudly Coles today. So yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
No, you're very welcome, mate. Thank you. And I have been to Coles HQ in Hawthorn. It is a very impressive facility. So good to see you flying the flag. Now, mate, I've gone ahead and done it. I've used the U word. I can't believe I've used the word unprecedented for an unprecedented number of times. But I guess just to kick us off, Alistair, in light of this crisis, have the basic fundamental principles of internal comms changed, or have they stayed the same? And is there anything in this unprecedented context that's really challenged your previous assumptions and maybe challenged your thinking about your discipline?
Yeah, I mean, unprecedented is certainly an overused word. And in fact, I remember early on in this, we actually had a message from our chairman saying, can you please stop using the word unprecedented in your communications? It's starting to sound a little worn out, but I don't know if anyone's come up with a better word, to be honest. But no, look, the answer to your question, I don't think the basic principles have changed. I mean, I've always thought internal comms is here to do, or in an organisation to do, 4 things basically. One, to communicate information. So first and foremost, what's actually going on? What do the employees, team members need to know in order to perform their roles? Secondly, to give leaders a platform and an opportunity to lead the organisation. Thirdly, to provide a sort of strategic context. So what's the actual narrative, what's the story, and then fourthly, to give the opportunity for the employees or team members in the organisation to give feedback, to be heard, and to be listened to. So I don't think those 4 things have changed. I don't think those 4 things have changed probably in 100 years really of internal comms practice. But what it's done is bring each of those to the fore. So perhaps at different times, I think, at Coles, it's really been a 3-part crisis. So it's been interesting for us as comms professionals, and I'm sure this is true for lots of people out there. We're used to crises. I mean, crises are nothing new, but most crises have a bit of a an arc. You know, you kind of it's an incident. Something happens. You formulate your response, and you deal with that incident. Now, this is not like that. This is not something that has happened and you know is sort of been managed in isolation and is going away. For us, it began with very much a demand crisis, I suppose, in our stores. So, you know, panic buying, a huge amount of concern around availability of stock for customers. So toilet paper being the symbolic one, but, you know, a lot of other staple goods too were really flying off the shelves. At the same time that was happening, you know, I should say there was obviously a growing, almost daily growing concern around health and safety. But the concern and the challenges around health and safety really came to the fore probably in late March. So as that supply crisis and panic buying was perhaps peaking and coming off a little bit, then a huge, obviously, amount of concern for our team members, for our customers, for people visiting our stores, particularly around safety and well-being. I think all of us remember in those first weeks, you know, it was a really nervous time for everyone. You didn't really know whether you could sort of touch a door handle, or everyone seemed to be, you know, everyone seemed to sort of hold the possibility of this virus. So that was, you know, extraordinarily important in terms of information for team members, and also giving team members a voice around those concerns.
Yeah.
And then thirdly, I suppose where we're at now, and perhaps have been for the last couple of weeks, it's this new normal, which is again one of those horribly overused expressions. But you know, this is now how we operate as a business. This is now the environment we're in as an industry, as a country, and that includes all of those safety measures. It includes different consumer behaviours. It includes different types of concerns from our team members. So I think of the four things I mentioned, you know, providing a real sort of strategic and you know, narrative voice around where we're going is more important now perhaps than it was when you're in the midst of the crisis, and it's very much about information and you know, dealing with the here and now. But no, I don't think it's concerned. I think if anything, it's made our jobs a bit more visible. Internal comms is often, you know, we get called the poor cousin sometimes in the corporate affairs world, and I always take any opportunity to you know, to take the centre stage a little bit and remind our peers in media and some of the other functions that no, actually we do a critical job that you know, the organisation depends on.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So it sounds like the basic principles are still there. If anything, they're being reinforced. I did want to ask you about the way in which it's potentially brought internal comms to the fore, and you've touched on that. I mean, are you working more closely with other business units, with strategic management from an internal comms perspective? I mean, a lot of these initiatives that have had to been rolled out at the store level, surely you're relying on direct feedback from floor staff and relaying that back to senior management to say what's working, what's not working. Has your position sort of, I guess, been catapulted a bit internally?
I don't know about catapulted, but certainly working with different people. Like, I've never worked so closely with the safety team. And we always had a good relationship, but, you know, in the past that might be around particular incidences or, you know, or more day-to-day things like, you know, making sure people lift correctly, and we're just doing the best practices around those sorts of things. But obviously the safety part of this is so important. So that relationship's become really critical. But, you know, the core stakeholders for internal comms always have been the CEO and the executive team, and particularly perhaps the leaders who lead large people functions. So for us at Coles, that's our Chief Operating Officer, Matt, who runs the supermarkets business. So that's not, of the 120 odd thousand people, that's getting up close to 100,000 people report up to Matt. So that's an important relationship. Yeah, look, I mean, I'd be lying if I said it didn't give you greater visibility and greater access to those people. But, you know, you're one of many, and I'm here to do a job alongside safety and alongside people and culture and alongside the supply chain team, the operations team. And, you know, the voice you have in that room is, sure, you're bringing a specialist voice, and often, I think, to your question, you're bringing the voice of team members in. So we do have lots of you know, feedback channels. A lot of those have been in place a long time. We have you know, from I guess more formal ones, we have a, you know, weekly survey that team members can fill in and provide anonymous feedback through to more open platforms like Yammer. I think throughout this period, you know, I spent a lot of time in our stores, in our distribution centres, and I suppose trying to get as much direct feedback and sentiment from people who, as you say, are on the ground and doing the jobs, and that voice is often critical in those discussions with leaders. But you know, they're out there too. You know, there aren't many people in this building that don't spend a lot of time out in stores. So we all sort of bring that voice to that table.